Next up, a Green Party candidate shouted Allahu Akbar after being elected to Leeds City Council, whilst his supporters unfurled a Palestinian flag behind him. Motin Ali, who won the Gypton and Hare Hill seat with 3,000 votes, said his election to the council was a win for the people of Gaza. Delivering a victory speech after the result was announced, he said people are fed up of being let down by a Labour council, and concluded by saying, "We will not be silenced. We will raise the voice of Gaza and Palestine." Take a listen.
I've been neglected by this rotten fucking council. Look how long you're using back off. Don't you back yourself win. Don't you back in Gibson. This is a win for the people of Gaza who have been be silent. We will raise the voice of Gaza. We will raise the voice of Palestine. Allahu Akbar.
Why has the Green Party got a position on the conflict in Gaza? And do they now expect bin liners to be black, green and red? I've got to say, this seems to be a serious matter. Does this story suggest that Britain is now in the grip of extremist politics, with our democracy now influenced by a foreign conflict thousands of miles away? Let's get reaction from my top pundits. Model and TV personality Diana Moran, political commentator Benedict Spence, and broadcaster and author Nina Mishkov. Benedict Spence, should we be worried? Your reaction to that video, which has gone viral.
Worried at this stage, perhaps not so much, but it is concerning, but it's also not surprising. For a very long time, the Labour Party got a lot of support in certain Muslim communities in this country because the Labour Party was the most powerful party in that area that people moved to, not because those people necessarily agreed with its ideology. We've got to talk specifically here about communities from Pakistan, Afghanistan, Kashmir and Bangladesh. That's how politics works there. You join the party, you join the power broker, you join the big player that is the most powerful one there, because that's how you get things done. But if you were to think actually more broadly about, the Labour Party's sort of position on social issues, it couldn't be more diametrically opposed to what actually a lot of these people believes. And you see that in the way that George Galloway has very successfully been able to become an MP again by appealing to economically left-wing policies, but socially quite conservative policies. He's got an interview out somewhere else this weekend where he talks about his views on homosexuality. No doubt that is going to chime very well with his voters, with certain parts of his constituency in Rochdale. What's happened here is that the Labour Party has taken a particular stance on Gaza, which for some reason is incredibly important to people from across the world, but who are not actually from that part of the world. They've taken a stance on this. A lot of people within the party are very upset about this, certainly within the Muslim community. I say the Muslim community, aspects of the Muslim community. And so they are looking for ways to make their displeasure felt. And you have seen this with people joining George Galloway's Workers' Party of Britain. In this instance, we've seen somebody joining the Green Party, again, very socially liberal party, very, very different, actually, from what a lot of people in the Muslim communities around Britain would actually adhere to. They're using whatever vehicle they can to apply pressure on Sir Keir Starmer to show their displeasure. Is this a dangerous thing? Long term, it could be a very dangerous trend. I always say this, is that this is what's happening now because Gaza is in the news now, but what actually happens if there's a war between India and Pakistan? Actually, we have huge Hindu and Muslim communities from the subcontinent in this country. What would happen if they were to start applying pressure on political parties to take sides along a nuclear conflict in that part of the world? That would be very, very dangerous. But the flip side to this is the Conservative Party has lost a lot of support to Labour from other minority communities. So Nigerian Christians, for example, tend to be, certainly in London, actually far more likely to lean Conservative. Actually, those sort of other minority communities, Christian communities around the country especially, they are leaving the Conservatives because of how badly the Conservatives have done. So it sort of balances itself out. It's something that could very much be a threat to Labour in the future. For the time being, it's not existential.
I just find these scenes unedifying at the count for local elections in the UK, with this man ranting about a conflict thousands of miles away, Diana.
It's really very frightening to watch. Motin Ali, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, he's very well-spoken. I mean, he's able to get across to the people very, very well. And yes, I mean, he is fighting for the freedom in other parts of the world. It is anti-Semitic, I think. I think it's very concerning. We all know there's death and destruction going on across there, and we all would love it to come to an end somehow, but I find this very frightening in the middle of England.
I think so. I mean, here's a comment from Konstantin Kisin, a broadcaster and author, Nina. Multi-ethnic societies work if people assimilate. That's the only way they can work. An elected official shouting Allahu Akbar and going on about a foreign conflict in his first speech is what the utter failure of multiculturalism looks like.
Well, it's very unedifying. I have to agree with that. But I disagree with Diana in that I don't think it is anti-Semitic, because it's always important to recognise the difference between the Netanyahu government, the Israeli people and Jewish people. It is not the same thing. It's much more nuanced than that. And I find that, you know, Keir Starmer is damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. He is in a position of, you know, being the sort of the heir apparent to Prime Minister, as it were. Mm-hmm. So he has to prove to our masters, the American government, who dictate the political stance that we take on Gaza. But if he, you know, the leader of the opposition, in normal terms, is free to take a completely different view from the government, and very often does so, and that's a wonderful freedom to have. But when it's this stage to an election, and when he might well be the next Prime Minister, he cannot go against Biden and what the Biden government want. And this it's in the same way that Rishi Sunak had to adhere to what Biden wanted. And I find this. I almost feel sorry for him, because he's worked very hard to rid the Labour Party of the whole anti-Semitic feeling that there was. He's seen off the left for the moment, and here he's in a situation where he's in a complete cleft stick.
Right, but what's this conflict in Gaza got to do with the Green Party?
No,
why aren't they talking about recycling and carbon emissions?
Because we see it every night on our televisions, and it's not just us. It's not just the Green Party there. It's if you look at the American campuses, they're aflame. The universities in Paris and throughout France, and even our kind of, you know, rather, you know, sloth-like lot are kind of moving themselves a bit. You know, universities used to be, you know, hotbeds of revolt and protest. Yeah. And for decades they haven't at all. And now they're suddenly stirring themselves because it's a dreadful situation. You were seeing 35,000 people.
I think nobody disagrees that it's a dreadful situation, but people would also point out the hypocrisy that there are any number of actually, frankly, worse conflicts happening, especially in the Muslim world, that you hear absolutely nothing about. And the point is that in this incident, it might not be an individual who's anti-Semitic, but there is an anti-Semitic strain in the fact that, you know, what's happening in Sudan, which is a genocide, what's happening in Rakhine, which is a genocide, what's happening in Xinjiang, which is a genocide, what happened to the Yazidis, which is a genocide, what's happening in Azerbaijan, which is ethnic cleansing. Nobody cares about these things, absolutely not. It is only when it is the world's only Jewish state that responds when it is attacked that people care. It is not genocide because losing a war that you started is not genocide. That is the long and short of it. I'm sorry.
I disagree with that in the fact that if the Israelis had allowed humanitarian aid to go in from the beginning, they are now allowing more in. But the fact is they cut off water.
They warned Gazans in North Gaza at the very beginning of this conflict.
They told the people in northern Gaza to go south, and then they bombed south.
No, they bombed the north, and now that they are... How many weeks have we been waiting for the invasion of Rafah to happen? It's still not happened yet.
Over 35,000, mostly
How many Hamas? How many Hamas? You never hear that.
Okay,
You never hear how many Hamas.
Feelings are running high on this one. Mark Dolan tonight is the home of diverse opinion.